Hello, welcome back in this channel. In this course, mathematical learning assessment, we are from Group 7. We will present about scoring white lines and assessment approach. With the members are me, Ananda, Regina, Prayitno, and Yusuf, Putra, Setyanto. For the first chapter, this is about scoring white lines. We will be presented by Yusuf Putra. Please, Putra, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Nanda, for the time. Hello, everyone. Good morning, or afternoon, or good night, good evening for all of you. Okay, I will explain first about scoring guidelines. Okay, in evaluating learning, a scoring guide is needed that can be used as a guide to assessing student work. Scoring guidelines are guidelines used to determine the score for the completion of student work. The difficulty here is setting the right score for the completion of student work, whether assignment, test, or others. Scoring consistency is very important for obtaining unbiased assessment results between students due to inconsistent teachers' assessment. The accuracy and fairness of the assessment is an absolute prerequisite for the production of an objective and accountable assessment. In line with the demands of the assessment according to Permendikbud number 66 of 2013 concerning assessment standards. In the Permendikbud, it is explained that the assessment must be carried out objectively and accountably, which is based on standards and it is not influenced by the subjectivity of the assessor and must be accountable. Okay, a good scoring guide will help teachers answer the need for these two assessment principles to be met. Okay, next I will explain about the type of scoring guidelines. Okay, we know that there are two type of tests, which is multiple choices and SI. The type of scoring guideline in multiple choice are there are two type. The first one is without correction of guess answer and with corrections to guess answer. And also for the SI, there are two. There is analytical scoring and holistic scoring. Okay, I will explain one by one. The first is multiple choice form test scoring without correction of guess answer. The formula is the score is B over N times 100, where B is the number of question that answered correctly, and N is the number of question. Uncorrected scoring is currently used in learning assessment. Usually, you all of the teacher will usually use this. However, the scoring technique actually contains a weakness because it is not able to prevent test takers from speculating in answering the test. This is because there is no risk for student when giving any guess in choosing an answer. So that if they do not know which answer is the most appropriate, they are free to choose one option arbitrarily, true or false. The answer do not indicate the ability of students. So the more guessed answer, the greater the deviation of the score with the actual mastery of student competencies. The second type is scoring with correction of guess answer. Okay. The formula is score equals B minus S over P minus 1 over N times 100, where B is the number of question answered correctly, S is the number of question answered incorrectly, P the number of answer choices for each question, and N the number of question questions that are not answered are given a score of 0. Okay, maybe you are still confused about this formula, let me explain in example. For example, Budi worked on 30 multiple choices question with 4 alternative answer from A to D. The correct work is 16 point. Budi's score can be calculated as follows. With B is 16, uh, and the rest is 14, which is the false answer. And then over 4 minus 1 over 30, we get the score is 37,77778, or it can be said that the score is 38. So the advantage of this scoring technique this technique is able to minimize speculation in student answer. If student know that the wrong answer will have an impact on the score, which mean that if student choose the wrong answer, the score will be decreased. Then the student will choose to leave the answer blank to avoid subtraction. Okay, we go to the essay form test scoring. There are two types. The first one is analytical, that used for problems where the answer limit is clear and limited. Usually, this scoring technique is used in objective essay tests in which students' answers are described in a certain order. Uh, if the student has written the correct formula, for example, if student has written the correct formula, he will get a score. And then if he enter number to the formula, he will get score again. And next, until he got the result of the correct calculation, he get the score. And then the total score, or the score in that question, is the sum of the numbers of scores from each response to the question. Next type is holistic, which is suitable for the assessment of non-objective essay tests. The trick is to read the answer as a whole for each question and then put it in categories ranging from good to bad. So each student answer is included in one category, and then for each answer of each category is given a score according to the quality of the answer. The quality of the answer is determined by the assessor openly. For example, there must be a data, or there must be a conclusion, and others. Okay. Sometimes scoring of essay questions use weighting or pembobotan in bahasa. Giving weight to a question by comparing it to other question is in the same test set. The formula is here: SBS equals A over B times C, where SBS is score of each question, A is the raw score obtained by student for the question, B is the maximum raw score of the question, and C is weight of the question. Weighting is also used in mixed form question, which are multiple choice and essay. For example, the weighting of the question in the multiple choice form and the essay form is determined by the scope of the material and the complexity of the answer, or the level of thinking involved in working on the question. And then the formula is like here: a test consists of capital N1 multiple choices question and capital N2 essay question. The weight for multiple choice question is W1, and the weight for essay question is W2. If a student answer correctly N1 multiple choice and N2 essay question, then that student gets a score using this formula: W1 times N1 over capital N1 times 100 plus W2 times N2 over capital. So we straight go to the example. For example, a test consists of 20 multiple choices forms with 4 choices and 4 essay question. The multiple choices question answered correctly 16 and answered incorrectly 4, while the essay form answered correctly 20 out of a maximum score of 40. If the multiple choice weighed as 40% and the SI form was 60%, the score can be calculated as follows. Multiple choices score without correction of quest. For example, we choose this type. We get the score is 80, and the SI form score we get 50. So the final score is the weight of the multiple choices time the score of the multiple choices, which is 0.4 or 40% times 80 plus the weight of SI 60% times 50, the score of the SI. We get the score is 62, like that. Okay, next to the development of scoring guideline, there are 7 steps of developing the scoring guidelines. The first one is setting goal. The test is developed according to the needs of the collecting data on aspects that are indeed the purpose of measurement. The second step is identify the specific attribute you want to assess. It is necessary to identify what aspect will be the focus of the assessment. The third step is describe the characteristic that represent each attribute. After the attributes to be measured have been clearly identified, the next step is to describe the characteristic. The characteristic will then be the main point of observation in determining the score. Okay, the fourth step is determining the scoring technique. In order to score, in order for the score obtained to describe the measured attribute well, you must determine the appropriate scoring technique. You can choose one, for example, analytical or holistic, like that. The fifth step is develop scoring guidelines. The preparation of scoring guideline is adjust to the scoring technique used. For example, if we use analytical scoring technique, the first step is create the answer key for all of the question. Next, determine the score of each question, and then the score for each question is determined by setting the score for each unit. Okay, if you use a holistic scoring technique, for example, scoring can be started by compiling the key attributes and indicator of the aspect being measured. Okay, and then the key attributes and indicators are then formulated into categories to determine the answer score. Okay, the next step is piloting or limited trial use of scoring guidelines. Uh, Piloting of the use of scoring guidelines was carried out by using them on several student answer sheets. You can do it by yourself or you can involve other people. Okay, and the last step is fix scoring guidelines. After you do all of the 6 steps, uh, if you need to do an improvement, then do it. Improvement were made based on information found in the piloting or in the limited trials. This improvement may include scoring, reduction, weighting, or others finding necessary for the goodness and ease of use of the scoring guidelines. Okay, next is about assessment approaches. It will be explained by Ananda.
Okay, thank you, Putra, for your explanation. I will continue the presentation about assessment approach. So, assessment approach is divided into three part. This is about assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning. So, assessment for as an off-learning are approach that enable teachers to gather evidence and make judgment about student achievement. Next, Putra. Okay, for the first is assessment for learning. Assessment for learning is carried out during the learning process and is usually used as a basis for improving the teaching and learning process and clarify student learning and understanding. With assessment for learning, educators can provide feedback on the learning process of students, monitor progress, and determine their learning progress. So, with assessment for learning, educators can provide the feedback of the learning process of students and also monitoring and determine their learning progress. And with assessment for learning, educators can provide feedback on the learning process of students. And also, assessment for learning can be used to improve performance to facilitating the student. So various forms of formative assessment, such as assignment, presentation, project, including quiz, are example of assessment for learning. Next, Putra. So this is the how we say it, like the description, the brief description about assessment for learning. Reflects a view of learning in which assessment help students learn better rather than just achieve a better mark, and then involves formal and informal assessment activities as a part of learning and to inform the planning of future learning. It is also includes clear goals for learning activity. Next. Okay, provides effective feedback that motivates the learner and can lead to improvement, reflects a belief that all students can improve, encourage self-assessment and peer assessment as part of the regular classroom routines, involve teachers, students, and parents, reflecting on evidence, is inclusive of all learners. So assessment for learning is ongoing assessment that allows teacher to monitor students on a day-to-day basis and modify their teaching based on what the students need to be successful. This assessment provides students with the timely, specific feedback that they need to make adjustment for to their learning. Next, for the second is assessment as learning. Assessment as learning occurs when students are their own assessor. Students monitor their own learning, ask questions, and use a range of strategies to decide what they know and can do and how to use assessment information for new learning. Assessment information for new learning. Okay. And in assessment as learning, students can also be involved in formulating assessment procedures, criteria, and assessment rubrics or guidelines so that they know exactly what to do in order to obtain maximum learning outcomes. Next. So this is the description. Encourage students to take responsibility for their own learning, require students to ask questions about their learning, involve teachers and students creating learning goals to encourage growth and development, provides ways for students to use formal and informal feedback and self-assessment to help them understand the next step in learning, encourage peer assessment, self-assessment, and reflection. Assessment as learning has a function similar to assessment for learning, which is to function as formative and carried out during the learning process. The difference is Assessment as learning involves students actively in the assessment activities. So, assessment as learning develops and supports students' metacognitive skills. Next, assessment of learning. This is the third approach. Assessment of learning assists teacher in using evidence of student learning to assess achievement against outcomes and standards. So far, the most dominant assessment of learning is carried out by educators compared to assessment for learning and assessment as learning. Sometimes referred to as summative assessment, it usually occurs at defined key points during a teacher work or at the end of a unit, term, or semester, and may be used to rank or grade students. Next, this is the brief description. Assessment of learning is used to plan future learning goals and pathway for students, provides evidence of achievement to the wider community, including parents, educators, the students themselves, and outside groups. Assessment of learning provides a transparent interpretation across all audience. So assessment of learning is the snapshot in time that lets the teacher, student, and their parent know how well each student can has complete the learning tasks and activities. It provides information about student achievement. Next. That's all for our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Please, if you have any question, just leave in the comment box on the below on this video. Thank you very much, and see you on the next video. Bye bye. Say bye bye to the audience, Putra. Can say something. Please on mic. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.